So hi there, and welcome to another Spooky Reads. So today I'm thinking about zombies. And as I was thinking about zombies, I realized I have not read that many zombie stories. Like I know tons of them. I've watched a lot of the television shows, I've seen a lot of the movies, but I haven't really read that much zombie work. So I was thinking through, I thought of World War Z, which was a really good book. I really enjoyed the kind of literary bent of it and the series of vignettes, to kind of piece together the overall picture. That really fit well with zombie mythology for me because it seems like that's how it would feel. That like you get information piecemeal when the world is falling apart and to the point that zombies are happening. It's not like there's an organized news source happening. And I like that book. I also thought about Ex-Heroes by Peter Klein, but it's more of a superhero story. It's not, it doesn't really fit my idea of spooky reads, even though zombies, of course, feature in the story. And then I thought of J.D. Blackrose's Zombie Cosmetologist. Blackrose is published by the same publisher as me, Falstaff Books, and these are novellas that I've read two of. I believe there's a third one in the offing. And they're really interesting books, kind of dramedy in tone, but again, they don't really fit spooky reads, even though they're about zombies. So what I settled on sharing from tonight is The Girl with All the Gifts. And this is a little tricky because I feel like I'm giving spoilers by talking about it at all. I managed, when I read this book, to get to the point of reading the book without knowing what was going on. And in some ways, I think that's better. Like, you might enjoy the book better if you don't know much about it going into it, because then you can let it reveal itself as a surprise, the way it's, I think, intended to be done. So if you haven't read it yet, and you don't want to be spoiled, then please stop watching my video and come back to it later, because I will feel bad if I spoil it for you. But The Girl with All the Gifts is a really great book. I really enjoyed it, and something really different in zombies in that at first you don't even know that it's a zombie story, right? You meet this little girl named Melanie, and she's in this strange facility, and you can tell that there's something dystopian going on because children are being like strapped to chairs and taught in a strange school situation, and people seem to be afraid of the children. But it's pretty far into the story before why they're afraid of the children and what's going on in the wider world is revealed. And also different is that Melanie and the other special children like her, who are the zombies of this story, are able to think and have control. They're not just mindless monsters driven by need and hunger like they are in a lot of zombie stories. So I picked a piece from towards the beginning where Melanie is describing her daily process, right? Like, what is it like for her as they get woke up and taken to school and all that kind of stuff. So here we go. To start with, Sergeant bangs on all the doors and shouts at the children to get ready. What he usually shouts is, "Transit!" But sometimes he adds more words to that. "Transit, you little bastards!" Or, "Transit, let's see you!" His big scarred face looms up at the mesh window and he glares in at you, making sure you're out of bed and moving. And one time, Melanie remembers, he made a speech, not to the children, but to his people. "Some of you are new. You don't know what the hell you've signed up for, and you don't know where the hell you are. You're scared of these friggin' little abortions, right? Well, good. Hug that fear to your mortal soul. The more scared you are, the less chance you'll screw up." And then he shouted, "Transit!" which was lucky because Melanie wasn't sure by then whether this was the transit shout or not. After Sergeant says transit, Melanie gets dressed, quickly, in the white shift that hangs on the hook next to her door, a pair of white trousers from the receptacle in the wall, and the white pumps lined up under her bed. Then she sits down in the wheelchair at the foot of her bed like she's been taught to do. She puts her hands on the arms of the chair and her feet on the footrest. She closes her eyes and waits. She counts while she waits. The highest she's ever had to count is 2,526. The lowest is 1,901. When the key turns in the door, she stops counting and opens her eyes. Sergeant comes in with his gun and points it at her. Then two of the sergeant's people come in and tighten and buckle the straps of the chair around Melanie's wrist and ankles. There's also a strap for her neck. They tighten that one last of all when her hands and feet are fastened all the way, and they always do it from behind. The strap is designed so they never have to put their hands in front of Melanie's face. Melanie sometimes says, "I won't bite." She says it as a joke, but Sergeant's people never laugh. Sergeant did once, the first time she said it, but it was a nasty laugh, and then he said, "Like we'd ever give you the chance, Sugar Plum." When Melanie is all strapped into the chair, and she can't move her hands or her feet or her head, they wheel her into the classroom and put her at her desk. The teacher might be talking to some of the other children or writing something on the blackboard, but she, or he if it's Mr. Whitaker, the only teacher who's a he, will usually stop and say, "Good morning, Melanie." That way, the children who sit way up at the front of the class will know that Melanie has come into the room and they can say good morning too. Most of them can't see her when she comes in, of course, because they're all in their own chairs, with their neck straps fastened up so they can't turn their heads around this far. This procedure, the wheeling in, and the teacher saying good morning, and then the chorus of greetings from the other kids, happens 9 more times, because there are 9 children who come into the classroom after Melanie. So, it goes on for a bit here, but you can see, like, at the beginning of the book, you don't know what's going on. There's a couple of hints, right? Because he uses such harsh language to talk about children, and you're like, friggin' little abortions, for goodness sake, what's wrong with this man? And the children are being treated like they're dangerous, right? And in particular, the joke about biting, I think, is one of the hints. But if you didn't walk in knowing this was a zombie story, then it takes a little while. And I think what I really liked in this story was the approach to zombies being thoughtful, right? That they were just another kind of creature. They weren't presented exactly as humans. Maybe it's more along the idea of transhuman stories, right? Where there's people who are more than human and they seem human, but they're not the same thing as humans. They're another biological strain, something else altogether, another kind of creature. And Melanie is such an engaging character, and you find yourself on her side and cheering for her right from the beginning. And even after you find out that she's a zombie, even after she does some violent things, because she's so thoughtful and she's so kind and wants good, and so it's easy to really fall in love with her as a narrative voice and want to see things go well for her. And in a lot of zombie stories, I think one of the morals of the story or the lessons of the story is that the real danger is other people, right? That the monsters in the story are not necessarily the zombies. It's what people do to each other when they're in these moments of crises. And that's what makes the allegory in a zombie story. That's what we're really talking about, is the evil men do to one another. Men and women, of course. So there you go. There are my thoughts on zombies. If you have any great zombie stories that you've enjoyed, especially in written form, because I find I haven't actually read that many zombie stories, I would love to hear about them in the comments. Thanks for listening.